Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Richard Maze Controller Bloodworth. As you can see, I'm using a different term for the Game Master because I will be talking about Dragonslayer. So Dragonslayer RPG is an RPG written by Greg Gillespie, and it is really catching quite a bit of buzz of late. So Dragon Slayer is being propped up as one of the best examples, OSR examples, of how you can put out D&D BX and put it out in a way that it is very clear and easy to follow along and read, as well as just incredible art, which you see here. It has a Jeff Easley cover, so you really can't get any better than that. But Today's video, I'm going to be focusing on Dragonslayer, the combat system details and examples of that combat system. And so without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the PDF and jump right in on that. So one moment, we transitioned and here we are. So combat. I'm going to expand this so that you can see it along as well. So the combat round consists of 4 steps: declaration of spells, roll initiative, action, initiative winner, action, initiative loser. At the end of the round, the sequence is repeated until one side defeats the other or flees. See morale. Surprise. If an encounter takes place unexpectedly, for example, on an ambush or an incidental encounter, the maze controller may require a surprise check. The MC will call for the monsters, the players, or both in a simultaneous example of surprise to roll a d6. A roll of a 1 to 2 indicates surprise. The side that was not surprised receives a full round of action, defined below, prior to rolling initiative. In some instances, both groups may be surprised or unsurprised. In this case, initiative proceeds as normal with the declaration of spells. Combat round in detail. Declaration of spells. The declaration of spells initiates a combat round. All spellcasters or monsters that wish to cast a spell must indicate their intent. Player characters must explicitly identify the spell and any relevant details. Rolling initiative. After the declaration of spells, each side rolls a d6 for group initiative. Players should take turns rolling for the party, and the maze controller rolls for the monsters. The highest roll wins initiative and acts first. The loser of initiative acts last. A tie results in a dice off, and initiative is re-rolled until a winner is determined. One major difference between this version and many of the older D&D versions is that there is no dexterity modifier to initiative rolls. Action. Initiative winner. The winner of initiative acts first. The PC or monsters that acts first is subject to a marching order. Order of action. The winner's actions is considered the top half of the combat round. Under normal circumstances, player characters are organized in 2 tactical columns called a marching order. The marching order is numbered from the front to the back. See the graphic on page 256. The marching order normally, but not always, determines the order of action. Who acts first and in what sequence. All right, so that's another major break from older editions of Dungeons and Dragons as well, where it used to be whoever individualized initiative, and whoever had the highest dexterity or initiative bonus would go first. In marching order and in the confines of a standard 10-foot passage, the first two PCs may attack. If those in the front rank are short demi-humans, dwarves, gnomes, or halflings, and the second rank are medium-sized cyclopsmen, humans, elves, half-elves, or half-orcs, and possess missile weapons, they can attack over top shorter party members. If those in the second rank possess spears or polearms, they can attack with a reach from the second rank regardless of the size of the front rank. Height and weapon choices are central considerations in the establishment of marching order. So you already see that there's a very tactical sense of order here. The maze controller will modify the order of action subject to combat circumstances. For example, if the party is attacked from the right flank, then those on the right side of the marching order would attack first. If attacked from the rear, the back rank would be considered the front, and so on. These modifications are common in tight dungeon spaces and ambushes, but might not be applicable in large rooms or wilderness contexts. If spells are declared, they come into effect during the caster's position in the marching order and or order of action. If a spellcaster is hit while in the midst of casting, the spell is disrupted and fails as if cast. During a PC's or monster's turn in combat round, he or she possesses an action. As a general guide, an action consists of two things. A PC could, for example, move and attack, attack and move, cast and move and cast, or double move, run. An attack could be either melee or ranged. Pulling something from a backpack is considered a full action. Dropping or drawing a weapon is considered a free action. The maze controller is the final arbiter of all actions. Ranged or missile weapons cannot be used if immediately adjacent to an enemy. Missile range must be a minimum of 5 feet away. Also see point blank range under weapons. Partial cover from missile attacks confers a +2 to +4 bonus, subject to discretion of the maze controller. If a combatant engaged in direct melee shifts, disengaged, or turns their back in combat to flee, all adjacent opponents receive a free attack. This will give PCs or monsters pauses prior to charging into combat. Action. Initiative loser. After the initiative winner, the initiative loser acts in the bottom half of the round as per the instructions outlined above. At the conclusion of their action, the first round of combat is over. The second round of combat begins with declaring spells, rolling for initiative, the winner's action, the loser's action. This sequence continues until one side is defeated or flees. See morale. Now I'm going to start abbreviating some of this here, but I'm going to focus in on how the combat system works here. In particular, the way that armor class plays a role. So to attack a player must, make two declarations. First, the player must identify the specific target of the attack. Second, the player must identify the weapon used in the attack. For example, I attack the wounded orc with my broadsword. The base number required to hit armor class 0 is 20. As a PC increases in level, their combat skill and proficiency increases as reflected in their attack bonus. A player simply rolls a d20, adds their attack bonus, and their strength or dexterity modifier to their roll, and compares the result to the numbers on the bottom of the character sheet. if the result is equal to or greater than the armor class required to hit, the attack is successful and the weapon damage dice are rolled. If lower, the attack misses. For example, Pardue, the Holy Man, a level 4 cleric, attacks a zombie with his mace. The zombie has an armor class of 8. In order to strike AC 8, Pardue must roll a 12 on a d20. A level 4 cleric has an attack bonus of +1, and Pardue has a strength of 13, which gives us a +1 to hit and damage. Pardue rolls a 5 on a d20, plus his attack bonus and strength modifier for a combination of +2 to hit. A 7 is a miss against an AC 8. So just to clarify this, it uses descending armor class, but it still generates a target number. And that target number is derived from subtracting the AC of the target from 20. And so that's where the number 12 is derived from. All right. If the AC was lower, let's say the AC was a 6, then the target number would become a 14. 20 minus 6 is a 14. The lower the descending armor class is, the fewer points taken down from 20 becomes the target number. So an AC 2 would be a target number of an 18, and so the attacker would have to roll a d20 with his or her modifiers and still be able to roll an 18 or better. Monster attack. Just like the player, the MC must identify the target and the weapon attack type as applicable prior to the d20 roll. Monsters attack as fighters and use the hit dice as level to determine combat attack bonus. The monster example. The aforementioned zombie, HD2, attacks Pardue, the Holy Man, with its claw. Pardue has an AC of 4, chainmail and shield, no dexterity AC bonus. The zombie with an HD of 2 attacks as a second level fighter with no attack bonus and therefore requires a 16. That's a 4 subtracted from 20 makes it a 16 to hit Pardue. The zombie rolls a 17. The monster rolls a d8 for damage dice and scores 3 points of damage. Alternatively, the mace controller can use a target 20 combat roll. The monster rolls a d20 and adds its HD and the AC of the target. The monster scores a hit if the result is 20 or higher. All right, so that's a modifier to it. So I actually in this description I prefer the descending armor class, just subtracting from 20, and that becomes your target number. I think that's a little bit easier to use. But if you prefer to do target 20 combat roll, you can certainly do that as well. Morale. Intelligent monsters and monstrous humanoids value their lives. The maze controller should check morale when the leader is slain or half their number are killed. To check morale, the maze controller rolls 2d6 and compares the result to the monster's morale score. If the number is less than the morale score, the monsters stand and fight. If the number meets or exceeds their morale score, they flee. If a PC is slain, their henchmen immediately check morale, see charisma, or flee. A natural 20 on. I want to mention one thing with the fleeing. So you notice that they don't mention player character morale, and that's because the player controls his or her own character's morale. They will learn to know when to flee and when to stand fast and continue fighting. Sometimes they misjudge that and they end up getting killed, but in most cases, um, if they're very selective in the types of combats that they get themselves involved in, they will develop an awareness of when is the best time to flee. Critical hits and misses. A natural 20 attack roll called a critical hit is always a hit and scores double rolled damage plus strength, dexterity, or other modifiers. A natural 1 called a critical miss is always a miss. Consult the chart below to determine the results of a critical miss. So critical miss table is only D8, and as you can see, a 1, which is the least of the potential downsides to a critical miss, is a dexterity check or miss the next attack. A 2 is you attack, you slip, and fall prone. The worst case scenario, or two worst case scenarios, is that you hit yourself, dexterity check to do half damage, or hit a close ally, dexterity check to do half damage. All right, so those are the two potential worst case scenarios here. Binding wounds. Immediately after a battle, PCs may bind wounds. Binding wounds heals D3 hit points of damage and revives unconscious PCs to 1 hit point, but requires 10 minutes of game time. The maze controller must make random monster check. If binding a wound is disrupted, no hit points are gained. Damage and death. When an opponent, PC, or monster is successfully attacked, they take hit point damage specific to the damage dice of the weapon, spell, or attack form. The damage is subtracted until the opponent reaches 0 hit points and is slain. Death and dying. When PCs and monsters reach 0 hit points, they die. The following optional rule may be used subject to discretion of the maze controller. 0 hit points unconscious for D6 rounds, then revives to 1 hit point. Monsters may coup de grace. In other words, monsters may look to finish off somebody who is in this state. On a -1 to -9 is save versus death or die. Save result is unconscious for 1 to 6 rounds and revive after 1 hit point. Failure means death. So at -1, you need to do a saving throw versus death or your character dies. All the way up to -9. At -10 or below, dead, no save. All right, now you can nuance this in other ways as well. I have had many a game master say that if your body has taken physical damage beyond -10, you can't even be resurrected. There is so much damage done that you cannot be brought back. Abbreviated combat and miniature light rules. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here. I'm just going to show you the diagrams and go over this so you can see this is a marching order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Flanking. So anyone coming in from the side of an opponent or even a diagonal is considered flanking. A bonus of +2 to hit is provided to each flanker if an opponent is attacked diametrically opposed side at the same time. All right. So if you're only being attacked by one target, all right, then you're going to do that slight pivot to not be flanked. Reach. Spears and halberds reach 5 feet, 5-foot reach, and may also reach to the second rank. Halberds cannot be used against an adjacent target, right? So you can see here where the PC with the reach spear is behind the PC. Looks like just has a staff, and you can see that the spear, the arrow points straight across the other and can still attack. Push past. Player characters can move through spaces occupied by other player characters or allies as long as they are not adjacent to an enemy. All right, so if the player character is surrounded by enemies on adjacent sides, then this character could not push past, right? So, and they show this here, right? So here is the, actually they don't show the pushback here, push past here. Wrong diagram, I looked at the wrong one. Charge. A successful charge attack, minimum 20 feet away, scores double damage. Fighters and subtypes only. Flee and disengage. Disengaging from an opponent in a melee combat draws an immediate free attack. Prone bonus. An opponent lying prone is +4 to hit. Coup de grace. Attacking an unconscious opponent result in an automatic hit. The target must save versus death plus the damage inflicted on die. High ground. An attack made on a ground higher than an opponent is +1 to hit and +1 to damage. Missile combat. Missile attacks in marching order. Ranged weapons may be used by medium-sized PCs from the second rank over top dwarves, gnomes, and halflings. Missile attacks. All ranged attacks require a clear line of sight to the target. Missile attack minimum range is 5 feet away, 1 square from the target. Missile attacks and point blank range. Point blank range is defined as a missile attack from 5 or 10 feet away and results in a +1 to hit and damage. Missile attacks in friendly fire. A player character may fire into or through melee combat. A natural low attack roll 1 to 4 on a d20 results in a friendly fire and causes weapon damage to a party member. All right, so that's a pretty substantial risk, firing into a crowd, a friendly crowd, or trying to fire through it. I'm not going to go through this long combat example here. I've already given you a few, but this just takes all of the different scenarios and puts them all into one page of a description. Here we have the saving throws. So saving throws for clerics, druids, and monks. And these are broken down by level ranges. So 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 18, and 19 plus. And as you can see, as you go up in level, the target number that you have to roll above drops, right? So at 19, for a breath weapon, you only need to roll an 8 or better. But at first level, you have to roll a 16 or better. Saving throws for fighters, barbarians, paladins, and rangers. And you can see that some have better advantages than others, even at the first level or so. So some are just naturally better. So spells, fighters are at a disadvantage. Fighters, barbarians, paladins, and rangers are at a disadvantage to spells as compared to clerics, druids, and monks. And that's going to be even more so against magic users and illusionists. Thieves tend to be stronger against making saving throws against things that require dexterity. So you can see that their dexterity is going to give them an advantage for breath weapons, because that is avoidance of an agility avoidance. And so there you have pretty much the entire system for combat, um, covered pretty much in just a couple of pages. As you can see, the rules are not overly complex. Um, we can go into much more detail with the various weapon types, and weapon types do specific types of damage. So blunt weapons do bludgeoning damage, whereas spears do like piercing, swords do slashing, potentially piercing as well. Um, so there are a variety of different weapons that you can employ, different types of armor that you can wear, and such. And I'm going to actually go into detail in a separate video talking about those various things. I normally don't spend time with talking about equipment, but because Dragonslayer is so focused on tactical considerations in battle, I think it's important to do that. So be on the lookout for that video coming up, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. This video is going to go live on the channel on Thanksgiving Day, so I hope you enjoy the holiday. Spend a little time watching this video if you can squeeze it in. If not, certainly catch it afterwards. And you all have a great day spending the time with family and friends. And I always look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen or at a convention sometime soon. You all have a great rest of your evening. And again, enjoy the holiday. Take care.